Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Kind of like the Sixers, never ordinary. Let's go to the Eagles as they get ready for the L.A. Rams. Sal Powell was on yesterday's show. He predicts that more Eagles fans could be in L.A. than Rams fans. I don't know if it's going to be quite that bad, but this is an interesting matchup against the Rams. We're going to take a look at the Eagles now with Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast for another edition of Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash. Get some final thoughts from you after the Commanders win. First time we spoke since then, and some other interesting tidbits on this Birds team. Adam, what's going on, buddy?
Yeah, Mike, good to talk to you. Yeah, I was listening to you earlier on the Joel Embiid stuff. It's and I'm a Sixers guy, as you know, so this is disappointing. I'm glad this information got out from Shams Charania, who does a good job, who's replaced Woj at ESPN. I'm glad because it's good to know now that he doesn't always do things the right way. Do I want that to happen? No, but at least if it's going on, I want to know about it. And this is a problem, Mike. This is hard. I've just covering the NFL, and yeah, I know you look at this too. When let's say it's your quarterback is and he's the leader of the football team, obviously. But let's say your quarterback is repeatedly showing up to practice late, or let's put it this way: let's say you're showing up to his positional meeting, the quarterback room. Let's see, he's showing up 5 minutes late. First of all, the quarterback's got to be the first guy there. You got to show up early for your quarterback meeting. You got to be the first guy there of the quarterbacks, or an offensive meeting. You got to be the first guy there. If you're the last guy there, Mike, that's a problem. So with Embiid, that's a major problem. That this is the guy that the whole team goes through, and this guy does not show up on time. I mean, I'm not saying that's why they're 2-11, but that's a major problem, Mike.
We'll see where this thing goes. I think last night Nick Nurse saying, look, we need to see what happens at practice and the next game and see how Embiid responds to all this. You probably heard a lot about stuff like this in the NFL circles as well. How does a team respond after these team meetings that we hear about? You know, I guess that's what's next for what's going on here.
Mike, I'll tell you this. It's funny you say that because I was listening to your show earlier when you and Josh were talking about it. Most of the time when I've talked to coaches or players, more often than not, it means absolutely nothing. There are times when guys sort of feel the urgency, and they go, it's now or never, and they do get a turnaround. But more often than not, it doesn't happen because they weren't good to begin with. Now, this Sixers team should be way better. Now, let's look at last year, Mike. I don't remember whether it was reported or not. Remember, the players were saying in the locker room like they were 10-1, but they were miserable. Now, when they went through, they were losing 6 out of 7 were their team meetings. I can't remember, but clearly if they did have it, it didn't matter because that freight train was running downhill and they never could stop it. And that's the thing is, like, you've got, 82 games in the NBA. You only got 17 in the National Football League.
Yeah.
You can't afford a 4-game losing streak. Like the Rams, by the way, as we turn our attention, Mike, to this game, the Rams were 1-4. People were surprised now they've won 4 out of 5. So you can always turn it around. And Sean McVay, by the way, has done the most with the least, more than most head coaches. The guy's a really good head coach. They're not a very talented team. Look, they're 5-5. I wouldn't say it's a great record, but he gets a lot out of his team. He's very good at rallying the troops.
Let's take a look at this team, Philadelphia, and their new identity. Is this a running team?
Yes. Mike, I've been curious about this. We usually would not deal with the pass run ratio stuff for years. Our listeners would ask us to talk about it. We're like, guys, it's a passing team. Don't worry about it. So I was just curious. No one had asked me this. I'm like, what? Man, they're really running the ball a lot. So I brought this up on our show a couple weeks ago, and Jeff Mosher didn't know about this, and he kind of laughed like, this almost was like, could this be true? Well, it's even bigger. So they're the only NFL team, Mike, running the ball more than they're passing it. 51%, 49. 51% running through 10 games. 336 runs, 323 passes. The Lions are the next team. They're at 50-50. This is unreal. 312 run, 312 pass, Mike. Now, so why am I bringing this up? Because I love comparing Super Bowl type teams. I'm not saying the Eagles are going to be a Super Bowl team, but they look really good. They're the number 2 team in the NFL. They were in the 22 season, Mike. They were 55.6% pass, 44.4% run. So They're running it way more, Mike, than they are passing it comparatively to the 22 team. Now, the way analytically people will tell you who are in the data space, the way you evaluate whether a team is a running team or a passing team is what they do, how they call games in the first half. The Eagles are running the ball ninth most in the National Football League in the first half. They're 43.1% of the time. They were only running it 35.8% of the time in 22 in the first half of games. And then passing at 64%, and this year 56.9%, Mike. So they're clearly a running team, Mike. I mean, this is just second half of games. Nobody's running it. Now, this context, the Eagles are getting leads, and they are pounding that rock. 59.4% of the time they're running the ball in the second half. Number one by a wide margin. The Steelers are number two, and they're only passing at 40.6% of the time. So if you just look at it, Mike, they are, first time I've covered this team in 25 years, they're clearly a running team. And this stat, I was just curious. Truth be told, I had no idea it was like this. I was just wondering how much they run on first down. Would you believe the Eagles run the ball more on first down than any team? 65.2% of the time they run the football on first down. Pittsburgh's number two. Now, we know Pittsburgh wants to run the ball. That's mandated from up top. Here's another stat that'll blow you away if you really like this stuff. The Eagles on third down, their pass percentage is 66.4% of the time, right? Now, obviously, Mike, if you're at third down, you're going to pass most of the time. But they're the second lowest pass percentage. You know, guess who's number one? The Cardinals, who are super running it. Mike, they haven't run the ball like this with James Conner in years. They're 65.4%. Texans, Mike, they pass a ton. They pass more than anyone on third down. They're 92%. But it isn't amazing, Mike. No matter whatever metric you look at, the Eagles are running the ball like crazy.
Yeah, that third down pass percentage, 66%. I guess that tells you, too, that they're running the ball so well on first down that they have a lot of third and makeables from a run situation.
Here's another one on your point. Downs with 10 plus or go. By the way, that could be first and 20. I mean, we should mention that. Particularly, it's third down. So on downs with 10 plus yards to go, they're passing the ball only 46.4% of the time, lowest pass attempt percentage in the National Football League. Detroit's next at about 47%. There are only two teams running it more than passing it and 10 yards plus. That's insane, Mike. Think about it. Like, if you have more than 10 yards to go, you would almost always pass it. No, they're so convicted of running the ball. Their conviction, Mike, is ridiculous. With Barkley, and by the way, Hurts also running the football. Don't forget how well he's running the football compared to last season when he looked hurt. He's running the ball extremely well. Barkley's been ridiculous. Yeah. The best running back in football right now, Mike. This is every situation they run it. It's almost hard to believe.
Well, I wonder, this is on a more of a granular level for running backs, but if Saquon Barkley and what he's doing is going to start having organizations change their mind, or is this just an Eagles thing about the running back position?
You know what's funny? Greg Cosell said to us, Greg said that he noticed, just without looking at numbers, teams are running the ball a lot more this season. And he's true. I don't have the exact number, but the running is up. Now, I say that it was really a lot early on. Now it's starting to even out a little bit. It's still more running than usual. Mm-hmm. Now, James Conner, Cardinals, okay? Great season. He's been unbelievable. Saquon Barkley, best running back in the National Football League. Najee Harris on a contract year. I would argue that this is the best he's looked. By the way, Joe Mixon, phenomenal, okay? James Cook, really, really good. Devon Achane with the Dolphins. Derrick Henry, for goodness sake. Why didn't I mention him first? He's been unbelievable. By the way, the Titans thought he was finished, I could tell you. They thought he was on the downward spiral, okay? Jim Harbaugh, they want to hide the quarterback. They don't want to run the ball. They don't want to pass the ball a lot. Although Herbert's throwing the ball well, Mike. Brian Robinson, when he plays, is very effective. Detroit, I just mentioned them. They're the two-headed monster running back. If you go through this thing, Mike, it's crazy. The running is, as much as to my chagrin, because I want to pass more than I want to run it, it's working. As coaches would tell me before they would yell at me, I'd go, why are you guys running it so much? Because it's working. That's what they would say to me. So, Mike, I'm going to repeat that. It's working.
Well, it's definitely working for Philadelphia. And, our buddy Tim McManus wrote an article a couple weeks ago over at ESPN.com about, Mailata, Lane Johnson, and Dickerson walking in and basically saying we need to do this more. Was the messaging coming from the team, or was it just, hey, we're watching the film and this is working?
It's working, Mike. But now, again, you have to, context is everything, right? If you go through, Mike, the first part of the season, right? Green Bay, that was a great game. Really, just a fun game. Passing volume, motion, everything. This is true. This is the one true Kellen Moore game. Second week, Hurts does not play well, right, against Atlanta. Tape was bad. Third week, no A.J. Brown. Devontae Smith gets hurt. Somehow they win. That was a great game, but offensively they only scored 15 points. The next week they got blown out. Awful game. Brown doesn't play. Smith doesn't play. Then they had their bye week. Hurts didn't play particularly well against Cleveland. They only scored 20 points. Didn't look great. The Giants game, they got the job done. They scored 28 points. The Giants are horrific in that game. Bengals game, they didn't pressure Hurts. Hurts was terrific throwing the football. I think you got to look at context. I don't want to downgrade. Tim's a friend of mine. I'm not criticizing him. I read the piece. I'm just telling you the way coaches think. They're not going to do what the players want just because the players want to do it. The only time I've seen a team do it, and they did it one time in 2017, when the Eagles, for whatever reason, in that game against Kansas City when it was windy, they ran the ball. I have to look at the number. It was ridiculous in 2017. It's like, look, I know you want to throw the football, but that was a game they lost on the road in week 2. They threw the ball 46 times in unbelievably bad wind, and that was stupid, and the players went to them. And then guess what? They changed it one week, then they went back to what they do. Sometimes you also, by the way, Hurts has the lowest pass attempts total per game, 26.3 in the National Football League. It's working, Mike.
Yep.
Jalen's a part of the run game, limiting his attempts, running it. Greg Cosell threw this out to us when we did an off season. I remember this, and I remember to bring this up, and we'll probably ask Greg tonight when we do the live stream with them for Patreon members, patreon.com/Inside the Birds if you want to join it. So what we said to Greg is, what are your thoughts on the Eagles' offense this season? When we taped an off-season show with him on the Eagles, and he said, that's the question I have. What will they do? Because he didn't know the contract, but what will they do when you're paying a guy? Well, I told him it's $16.6 million per season. Are you going to become a running team? And where does Hurts fit in? Well, we got our answer. Limit the attempts for Hurts. By the way, another 2 feathers in Jalen's hat. Not turning it over. He stopped doing it lately. And his completion percentage is going up. I know he's missing throws in the first quarter. That's what the tape shows. It's not good. But you know what? They're winning. And that's all that really matters in the end. Now, at some point, Jalen's got to get off to a better start. That's hurting the football team. That's what the tape shows. You can't deny that because the tape shows it. Like I don't argue tape. Like if the tape shows you, okay. Now, if he gets himself together and throws better in the first quarter, they're competing against the Lions. I'm not a homer, you know that, Mike, but this defense is playing lights out. Yes, we need to see against the Rams, the Ravens, and the Steelers. But when you got a great defense, you got a great running game, and if your quarterback becomes a little bit more efficient, show me where this team's got a problem. I don't see it. If Jalen could get off to a better start and be more accurate early and not bail, that's it.
Well,
I don't see what the problem is with this football team.
I know we'll talk more about the matchups on Friday's show and stuff, but this is going to be an interesting matchup for the secondary here. Kupp and Nakua, they're kind of shifty, smaller, quick type of receivers. So we'll see how this secondary matches up. And by the way, the Rams, unlike Jaden Daniels, Matthew Stafford's not going to be confused with your looks, and they can run the ball. So this is an interesting challenge.
It is. 2 things on that. First of all, this is what I thought would happen last week. The Eagles played a coverage-based defense against Daniels, which is the way to do it, against a rookie quarterback. But one thing you're going to see, Mike, we'll talk more about this on Friday, the Rams run reduced splits. They run more reduced splits just about more than any other team. Titans do it, but Rams do it more. That means the receivers are technically, they're called outside receivers. They're really not. They're inside the numbers where they line up. They're the outside receivers. Like you'll see Kupp closer to the quarterback. He's technically outside because he's technically an outside receiver, but he's really not. He's playing inside. You'll see it if you watch them. Their receivers play closer to the quarterback. They're not outside like you would typically see receivers. I was told that basically by a coach who used to work with Sean, this helps the guys get open. They have trouble getting open on their own. It's great as route runners they are. It helps them. And it's very hard to press receivers when you line them up inside. It's really hard to do that. That's what I was told by this coach, and it works. And by the way, the Titans are doing it. You wouldn't know it by their numbers, but they're doing it. Other teams do it, but not to this degree. And it's going to be interesting. You're right, Mike. This is a great matchup. But I want to know what the Dolphins did 2 weeks ago. We're going to ask Greg Cosell that tonight because they completely shut down Stafford. By the way, Nakua played, and so did Kupp. And they completely the only team really to shut the Rams' offense down completely. That was a shellacking the Dolphins gave the Rams 2 weeks ago.
All right, well, we'll get into that on Friday. The Eagles take on the Rams on Sunday Night Football right here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, Adam Caplan will be back for that on Friday. We'll have more football at 4 tomorrow. Thanks, bud.
Thank you.
There's Adam Caplan, of course, here on the Sports Bash.